So, let's talk about a book that is, no joke, one of the most influential ever written, St. Augustine's Confessions. It's part autobiography, part prayer, part philosophy, but really, it's the raw, unfiltered story of a person's soul on a desperate search for truth, for meaning, and for a place to finally be at peace.
You know, to really get this book, you have to start right here, with this one famous sentence. This isn't just a great line, it's the key to the whole thing. It's Augustine's big idea about being human. That deep, nagging restlessness we all feel. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's like a homing beacon inside us, pulling us towards something more.
So, what is this book really? Well, Augustine isn't just telling us his life story. He's confessing in two ways at once. Sure, he's confessing his sins, but he's also confessing his praise for God. The whole book is basically a direct conversation, a prayer, where he picks apart his own past to figure out his present.
Now, to understand his journey, Augustine knows he has to figure out what he was running from in the first place. And you'd think he'd focus on some huge, terrible crime, right? Nope. He zooms way in on this one seemingly small thing from his youth that, for him, unlocked the whole mystery of why we do bad things.
Okay, so picture this. Augustine is a teenager. He and his friends sneak into a neighbor's yard and steal a bunch of pears. But here's the weird part. They weren't hungry. He even says the pears weren't very good. They just stole them and then threw them to some pigs. The whole point was the thrill of just doing it. The act itself was the prize.
And this question just haunted him for years. It wasn't about need. It wasn't about wanting the pears. So, why? Why would anyone choose to do something wrong just for the sake of it being wrong? This wasn't a crime of passion or survival. It was something else, something much stranger. And here's his unsettling discovery. He realizes he was in love with the transgression itself. He loved breaking the rule. That was the high. The sin wasn't a means to an end. The sin was the end. He loved the fault just for being a fault. And this leads him to this huge idea he calls gratuitous evil. It's wild. From a dumb story about stealing fruit, he comes up with this profound insight into human nature, that sometimes we can get so twisted that we desire evil for no other reason than because it is evil. It's a rebellion against order itself.
So you see this restlessness in his actions, right? Well, it was exactly the same with his mind. This guy was brilliant, a master of public speaking, and he spent years just bouncing from one philosophy to the next, desperately trying to find a system that could finally answer his big questions about good, evil, and God.
And this search literally took him all over the Roman Empire. In Carthage, he got really into the Manichaeans, a popular faith at the time that seemed to have a logical answer for everything. But after almost 10 years, it started to fall apart for him. He moved to Rome, his doubts got bigger, and then he landed in Milan. And let me tell you, Milan is where everything changed.
Okay, let's hit pause for a second and look at the worldviews he was juggling. On one hand, you had the Manichaeans. For them, the universe was a cosmic battle between two physical things, a good god of light and an evil god of darkness. Evil wasn't a choice, it was a substance. It was simple, but it didn't hold up, especially after he met their celebrity bishop Faustus and found him totally unimpressive. On the other hand, in Milan, he ran into a totally different way of thinking. Here, God is infinite and all good, and evil? Evil isn't a thing at all. It's just the absence of good, a turning away from it.
So in Milan, you get this perfect storm. Three powerful forces hit him all at once. First, he's intellectually just done with Manichaeanism. Second, his devout mother, Monnica, who'd been praying for him for decades, is right there with him. And third, he starts listening to the Bishop of Milan, a guy named Ambrose, who shows him that faith can be both powerful and really, really smart. All right, so you'd think, great, problem solved. He's convinced, he knows where the truth is, story over, right? Wrong. And this is what makes Augustine's story so incredibly human. He discovers that knowing the right thing to do and actually being able to do it are two totally different things. And this conflict, it led to the most dramatic moment of his life. He was completely stuck, paralyzed. His mind was pointing one way, but his will was chained by years of ambition, desire, and just plain old habit. It just refused to move. He desperately wanted to change, but he was held captive by what he called the sheer force of custom. I mean, what a powerful way to describe that inner battle. He talks about having two wills fighting inside of him.
Not two different souls like the Manichaea said, but one single soul, violently tearing itself apart. It was pure torment for him.
And this all comes to a head in this famous scene in a garden. He just collapses, totally distraught, weeping in what he calls a mighty storm of the heart. And then he hears a child's voice from a house nearby, just chanting, "Take up and read, take up and read." Taking it as a sign, he grabs a book of St. Paul's letters, flips it open, and his eyes land on a passage about leaving behind a life of indulgence. And in that one moment, he says the storm inside him just stopped. The war was over.
This conversion wasn't just an escape from his past. It was the beginning of a whole new way of seeing, well, everything. Himself, his desires, his place in the universe. The frantic search had finally ended.
And so we come full circle. That restless energy that drove him across continents, through all these different philosophies and deep into his own soul, it had finally found its true north. The longing wasn't a flaw, it was the entire point. It was the very thing designed to lead him home.
This quote captures that feeling perfectly. All his wandering, his sinking away, was him moving away from the center of profound peace. In turning back, he didn't just find an answer for his brain, he found a state of being, a deep, unshakable rest for his heart.
You know, the reason we still read the Confessions is because it's more than just Augustine's story. It's kind of a map of the human soul. And it leaves us with a question that's just as urgent today as it was 1600 years ago. In our world of endless distractions and ambitions, what's the true source of our restlessness? And where do we even begin to look for our own peace?